So, the first piece of news, most pressing piece of news, came out today. Chris Paul is retiring from the NBA after 21 seasons. this this is the start of the end for this generation of players. I hate to say it. Chris Paul is an absolute legend. He was from his start with, I believe it was the Charlotte Hornets or the New Orleans Hornets before he was there. He was amazing there. Young Chris Paul was so much fun to watch before he went to the Clippers, Lob City. That entire era was phenomenal as well. I had a great time with that, even though they did have a bit of a tumultuous breakup. And then Houston, he revitalized the Thunder, helped Shea along his development as well. Chris Paul is just an absolute legend of the game. And like I said, this marks the beginning of the end of this era. Chris Paul is the first domino to fall. In the next years, we're going to watch the dominoes of LeBron, KD, Steph, Harden, Russ. We're going to watch those dominoes fall eventually. And I am not exactly happy to be talking about that right now, but that is bound to happen. And then when you look at Chris Paul's accolades here, I'm just going to list them off: 12-time All Star, 5-time assist champion, 6-time steals champion, 11-time All NBA. He was 9-time All Defensive Team, 75th anniversary team. He was just an incredible player. A lot of people now they just say, "Oh, he's washed. He wasn't good. He didn't score in bucket in large quantities." People don't know about Chris Paul. Rookie, or no, it wasn't rookie Chris Paul in 2007, 2008 when he was with the New Orleans Hornets. He was second in MVP voting. 21.1 points, 11.6 assists, 2.7 steals. He was honestly an amazing player to watch. It was phenomenal on all fronts. So it's tough to say goodbye, but this year there were signs this year definitely, and also last year as well. He did play every single game with the Spurs last season, but he only averaged 8.8 points. He was clearly taking a step down, and then this year things kind of fell apart. I hate to say with the Clippers, only 2.9 points. There was the whole issue that he wasn't great in the locker room, and then they told him that he could go home or that he was waived. And then he was traded to the Raptors. The Raptors said he didn't have to report to the Raptors. So this season was supposed to be his farewell tour, but it turned out honestly rougher than Paul Pierce's farewell tour, which was one of the worst in NBA history. So salute to Chris Paul. Absolutely phenomenal player. Absolutely incredible player. Top, honestly, in my opinion, that's the number 3 point guard all time. It's Magic, it's Steph, it's Chris Paul. So he's right there. I don't care that he doesn't have a ring or an MVP. He is right there, number 3. So salute to Chris Paul. And then after that, we'll go over to the NFL. And fresh off a Super Bowl appearance, New England Patriots wide receiver Stephon Diggs has pleaded not guilty to felony strangulation charges, along with others that arose from a dispute with his chef. I'm not going to get too deep into all of the details in this because of A, just some privacy. B, I don't necessarily enjoy talking about law and civil cases and the implications for that in general. So I'm just going to put this out there that he has pled not guilty. I don't know if the NFL is going to take any actions against him, suspend him, but it we'll just have to see how this whole situation plays out. After that, the other major news from recent was that Trinidad Chambliss, the Ole Miss quarterback, has been granted a sixth season of eligibility by a state court judge in Mississippi. He was suing the NCAA to gain another year of eligibility because he was in JUCO and he wanted to come back. So he received an injunction which paves the path for him to play in 2026 after the NCAA ruled that he was out of eligibility. However, the NCAA can still appeal this, and there is a whole process, legislative process for that, and judicial process for that they're going to have to go through if the NCAA decides to appeal. But that could also take a while, as a lot of judicial issues and appeals, especially within the world of sports, it's common there. So for Chambliss, this is actually something that I've been discussing. I've discussed it in a couple classes, the issue of eligibility. Honestly, sixth season of eligibility is a bit much for me. I believe that athletes should get 5 years of eligibility. That includes junior college. If you went to JUCO for 2 years, you only get 3 more years in college. If you get to college as a freshman, you redshirt freshman, you only get 4 more years. If you play and then you get injured a year, you still only get 5 years. That way you don't have players who are like 26 or something coming in and playing against kids who are like 17, 18 years old. So this is a whole issue that the NCAA is going to have to figure out how to deal with. Diego Pavia also, his case set a precedent for players getting more eligibility. This also does that as well. So it's a whole issue that's going to have to be settled with the NCAA in the coming years. So there's that. And then when you're looking at a football perspective for Ole Miss, this is good for them. Trinidad Chambliss, if you watched the college football playoffs and honestly the entire season last year, Trinidad Chambliss was playing phenomenal football. I honestly started rooting for Ole Miss. Apart from my fandom for Ohio State, I started rooting for Ole Miss to honestly make it to the finals. The way Chambliss was playing was just so entertaining to watch. I just couldn't stop. The Georgia game was absolutely phenomenal, and I couldn't get enough of that. So for an Ole Miss team, this is a great move for them, and a great thing. And then after that, we got Jeremy Sochan. He was released. He was waived by the Spurs and plans to sign with the New York Knicks after he clears waivers. He was released on Wednesday and had interest from 10 suitors. He was this honestly, this is a nice move for the Knicks. I like this a lot. They brought in Jose Alvarado, as I've mentioned a couple times already on the show, but this move gives them some more length, some more size, which is something that they're kind of lacking right now. I believe he scored around 10 points per game. So he can provide a nice bench piece for them. He was in the Rising Stars game his rookie and sophomore season. This season, he is averaging only 4.1 points, but on his career, he's averaging 10 points, 5.6 rebounds. So it's a good pickup for the Knicks. He's a 6'8" player, and he's young too. He's only 22 years old. So this brings up youth and size for the Knicks, which they have honestly been lacking overall under Mike Brown. So there's that. Continuing on with the theme of the San Antonio Spurs, De'Aaron Fox has been named to the All-Star game this season. It's his second All-Star selection. He's replacing one Giannis Antetokounmpo. So this is a nice pickup. This is a nice selection for De'Aaron Fox. Honestly, there have been a lot of injury replacements, which isn't exactly something that I love to see. Steph is missing the game. Giannis is missing the game as well. And then, which is unfortunate, but De'Aaron Fox has been more or less deserving of it this season, averaging 19.4 points on 55% effective field goal percentage. So he's a deserving player this year. And I really like the way that he plays. His pairing up with Wemby is very nice. On top of that, he meets the game requirement or game requirement. There is no game requirement, but he's played in 45 games this season, so you can't exactly say that, oh, he's been missing time. He hasn't been playing games. No, he's been playing. He's been producing as well. So this is a nice all-star selection for him. And then the final bit of news is that Jaren Jackson Jr. is out for the season with a growth in his left knee. I don't want to accuse the Jazz of tanking, but I low key am. It just seems very convenient to me that they pulled all of their starters in the fourth quarter when they were winning the game a couple nights ago, and then now it comes out Jaren Jackson Jr. has a growth in his left knee and will miss time. So something's not adding up here. I know that Danny Ainge, the Utah Jazz, are trying to get a top 5 pick in what is a loaded draft class. Some of those players playing upcoming this weekend. I'll preview that later. But it just seems convenient to me. I don't like the way that the NBA is headed. And honestly, I'll go on a tangent here and talk about tanking with the NBA. I don't like the way things are looking right now. A lot of teams aren't outright tanking, but they're kind of subtly tanking for picks. Jaren Jackson Jr., Utah Jazz is an example. When the Mavs pulled Luka Doncic a couple seasons ago when they knew they weren't going to make the playoffs, and they were just like, we'll pull him, see what pick we get, if it's any good. There was that. And then you just have the entirety of March basketball that just doesn't, post All-Star break basketball just doesn't matter in the NBA anymore. Because people know that the teams in the playoffs are pretty much going to stay the way they are. That's not going to change. And then the bottom teams, they won't come out and say they're actively trying to lose, but they're trying to lose. So it's just an issue that the NBA and Adam Silver has to address to some capacity. I don't know if he has to come down with an iron foot like David Stern would and start finding teams or creating rules, taking draft picks, something like that. But it is something that has to be addressed in the NBA overall. But that is all the major news that has happened. Now it is time to look at the standings and see where all of these teams stand at this point. We're going to start off with the NBA. They're going into the All-Star break. So let's look at where everyone stands at this point in the season. In the East, the Detroit Pistons are 14-3. They're riding a 3-game win streak. They're at the 1 seed right now, and they're followed by the Celtics and the Knicks, who are separated by only half a game. They've been going back and forth. Celtics, a surprise team this year. So there is that. Charlotte Hornets continuing to climb. They're in the 9 seed right now. I will talk about all of these rankings as well later in the episode with the power rankings of the NBA teams, but that is how the Eastern Conference stands right now. Over in the Western Conference, Oklahoma City Thunder sitting on the 1 seed at 42-14. they haven't exactly been playing well, and the Spurs are hot on their heels, only 3 games behind them. They're riding a 6-game winning streak. And then at the bottom of the Western Conference, you don't have the Utah Jazz. You have the Sacramento Kings riding a wave of trash to a 14-game losing streak. So, not exactly great. But again, I will talk about that when I power rank these teams later on. And then we'll go over to college hoops and we'll look at the rankings right now. As it stands right now, this is what it looks like. Arizona at the 1 seed, followed by Michigan, Houston, Duke, and Iowa State. There are a couple of great games coming up as well with this that I will preview later. And then you have Texas Tech in there. You have Gonzaga, UNC up 3 spots, Kentucky making an appearance. So those are the rankings in college basketball. And then we'll go across the pond. We'll go over, look at Europe and European soccer. We'll start with the Serie A as it stands right now. Inter, 5 points ahead of their inner city rivals, Milan. And then their top 4 is rounded up by Napoli and Juventus. So there are a couple of good games that'll happen this week. I'll preview that when I look at all the games. But some major implications that'll happen with those, honestly, the top 5 teams, because Roma is tied with Juventus on points, but Juventus has the advantage on goal differential of a +6. And then we'll look at the Premier League with Arsenal 4 points clear of City, and then they're followed up by Aston Villa and Manchester United. Chelsea is also right there. So is Liverpool. So all of those teams have a chance to get that Champions League bid. It'll be interesting to see how those teams play out. They're only separated by 3 points, which is essentially just a game. And there are 12 games left to play in the season, so a lot can happen in there. That's 36 points in play. So anything could change with that. And then the final league that we'll look at Spanish La Liga, and it as it's been since this show has started. Barcelona and Real Madrid 1 and 2, separated by 1 point. Barcelona is at 58, Real is at 57. Atletico Madrid is 12 points behind with 45, and Villarreal is tied with them. So that's all the news. Those are all the NBA all the standings in general. But enough of that. Let's get to what everyone came to. Let's get to the main topic of the episode.